big and beautiful. Looks kind of different and it looks great. Yeah, they look pretty good. Look how big they are. Less than ideal gardening experience. Hello and welcome back to Sage and Stone Homestead. My name is Heather. This is the kids' garden. It's looking really good. Honestly, this is probably the best looking garden space of the whole property. There are 3 different growing spaces plus this one, and the kids got these new beds this year, and they've been growing in these for about a year and a half prior to putting these in. And really they do have some of the best looking plants on the property. Bentley's russet potatoes are doing their thing. I think they're finally starting to die off. It's been a couple weeks since they put on their flowers, and so I know that those tubers are growing really well underneath the ground. Molly's corn, it started to tassel the last time we were looking at the garden. And what this is the pollen part of the corn plant. And as the wind blows, that pollen shakes down onto the silks of the corn, and each one of these little silks is connected to a kernel. And as they're pollinated, that kernel develops, and her sweet corn is coming along really well. Look here, there's a bunch. She's very excited. She keeps coming in and saying to me, "Mom, my corn has little hairs." I said, "I know." That's a good thing. Here are Addie's peanuts, and thank you guys so much for letting me know that this is kind of what peanuts look like. I got a little bit worried that they weren't getting tall, but look, they've got these little yellow flowers that have started to open. They look just like pea flowers, which makes sense since peanuts are legumes just like peas. And I want to say there was something about the flowers coming out, the flowers being pollinated, and that being the reason that the peanuts develop below ground. I really don't know a whole lot about growing peanuts. This is our first time doing it, and that all sounds really fascinating. Shaika's popcorn is a couple weeks behind Molly's sweet corn, but that is a-okay. We can actually prevent cross-pollination because of that, but that's growing well as well. Their melons are doing fantastic. I think, yep. We're starting to see some decent flowers happening in here. It took a while for these little melons to get going. You can see we've got a little watermelon here. These are a golden watermelon. And back here we do have some variety of cantaloupe. The girls' tomatoes are a little bit wild and crazy. I've talked about needing to tame them, and we have not yet. Interesting. I think this is that volunteer tomato. Yeah, that's growing in between the beds. And I thought it was going to be a Berry's Crazy Cherry, but that is not. It actually kind of looks like it might be a bigger tomato. That could be an Oxheart, which is what she's growing here. So maybe things are just getting mixed up. That there kind of looks like a Berry's Crazy Cherry kind of fruit truss. I don't know, things are getting a little bit congested down here, which is contributing to a little bit of disease. I am trying to squeeze this garden tour in before a rainstorm hits. So the sun is gonna come out and then the clouds are gonna come out, but we'll deal. Bentley has said that the honeybees are absolutely loving his cucumber flowers, which they do love cucumber flowers. I don't know if they collect nectar or pollen from them, but look at them all. He's growing a couple different types of cucumbers. This one is a little bit more prickly, and the one on the other side is more like an English style cucumber. Here's one right here. He's been harvesting a lot of them and eating a lot of them, which is exactly what their gardens are for, fresh eating for them. Their peppers are big and beautiful, lots of buds on that particular plant. Shaika has a lot of peppers, and so does Molly. Their peppers are doing miles better than my peppers, which I find kind of funny because they pay a lot less attention to their gardens, but maybe that's the secret. They do have this archway coming into their garden, and I had put in some cucamelons when we first set this garden space up, but those cucamelons did not like being transplanted. So the kids actually grabbed some birdhouse gourd seeds and put them in, and so that's what that is. It will not take long for that to take over. We have to stop by and see this rose plant before we go up to the greenhouse. I showed you guys how much it bloomed in the past. Well, look, we've got so many buds. Just on this one section, there's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And at least 2 dozen, probably, buds in total. Look at that. This is gonna be beautiful again in hopefully about a week's time. Here's my Lady Banks rose. It's establishing well. This giant rose plant here is a multiflora rose, and the multiflora rose is medicinal, even though it is invasive. We've got a lot of invasive things around these parts, unfortunately. But I was thinking that we could use these to collect rose hips, because they will set little rose hips. But honestly, the birds get them before I do. So I'm actually thinking about taking this out because I can't really benefit much from it, even though I could harvest the petals and use those in teas and things. I can do the same thing with those cultivated roses that I have. You guys are kind of loud. What are you doing? Well, the greenhouse is in a little bit of a transition period. Looks kind of different from the last tour. We had a whole bunch of peas growing on the archway in here, but all of those have since come out. I wasn't able to harvest anything off of the shelling peas. They just got way too bogged down with the powdery mildew, but we harvested a ton of the sugar snap peas. I put a lot in the freeze dryer, and so we'll have that for later. And now the Malabar spinach is going to get its chance to take over the trellis. It's already well on its way on this side. There's a few plants over here. All you really need is 1 or 2 plants, and this entire thing is going to be covered. The carrot tops are looking massive, and I have actually harvested a carrot or 2 out of this bed. This is a rainbow carrot mix, and I'm noticing that the purple carrots look like they are maturing faster than the other colors of carrots, which I think is sometimes a little bit of the trick with these rainbow blends, is that they are just blends of different varieties of carrots, and they may come to maturity at different times. So poking through here, I think I probably will harvest the purple ones first, and then I'll come back and get the other ones as they mature. Because yeah, we just looked at some purple ones. This is orange here, but see, it's not as big at the base. See, I'll yoink this one out to give you an example. Look at that. See? Whoops! Actually pulled another one out. This particular variety looks like it's ready. So I'm not gonna harvest these today, but it looks like this variety out of the blend is ready to come out. And it looks great. That looks so much better than the fall harvest that I had. And what did I do different? Really nothing. The first time I planted in there, I'd used a seed tape, and that seed tape did come with some fertilizer on it. I don't know if the fertilizer that was in the seed tape plus what was already in the bed provided some sort of nitrogen imbalance, because really all I harvested in fall time was a whole bunch of greens and not very many roots, but things have changed. And all I did this time was just plant the seed. I didn't amend at all. So it looks like the nutrition is starting to balance out in that bed, which is very nice. Another thing that is starting to mature are these onions. These are the sweet candy onions, and they are bulbing up nicely. Ah, so beautiful. Every time I come in here, this catches my eye. We are still a few weeks away from harvest yet, but that's a very good sign. I noticed that the onions that I have over here, even though they are a little bit further behind, they are also triggered by the day length to start bulbing up. See them here? They're not as big, but we'll see. We'll get something out of this bed. I think I may have actually made our last broccoli harvest. Ugh, I say that, now look at these side shoots. There's even more here. Look at them all. Holy moly. This broccoli just won't stop. Look at that. Well, maybe it has one more harvest in it. In any case, I'm starting to think very seriously about pulling these plants out. I'm sure you've seen these little white butterflies flying around. These guys right here, they are cabbage moths, and they're having a grand old time laying their eggs all over these brassica plants, and that is just what they do. But what I would like to do is not just provide a haven for them to have their babies and make this spot really overrun with cabbage loopers. My daughter has a pet bird, and she's been coming here and grabbing the cabbage loopers off the plant and feeding them to the bird. But still, I think I need to make the final harvest off of these plants. They have well outperformed what I expected of them. I need to amend in here, and then I'm gonna let it rest for a couple of months before my fall brassica starts are put in here, which I have started, and a lot of them have sprouted. There's more carrots over here. These carrots are a couple weeks behind of the other bed. This here looks like a purple one. Ha, that's pretty good as well. Could just stand maybe another week or so in the ground. So I've got my eye on this bed as well. Now I'm not sure if you're gonna be able to see super closely what's going on here in the bed. So I took out the peas, and right behind them I put in some Kalima bush beans. And the bush beans are struggling a little bit, and I believe it's roly-polies that are coming along and really just chewing off the peas before they get a chance to do anything. That sort of looks like bird damage there. But see this kind of thing? This pea sprouted. I'll actually pull it out and show you. But you know, the productive part, the end of the plant, is totally been eaten off. And while I was noticing that, I saw a whole bunch of roly-polies doing their thing in this bed. Roly-polies are really great decomposers. They break down plant material like wood, but they will go after tender little seedlings, and that can be a big problem. So I'll probably have to replant this. Ultimately, what's going to go here are Brussels sprouts. But the Brussels sprouts are about 2 months before they're going to be ready to come out here. So I was trying to get something out of this area. In the meantime, bush beans can be a very quick turnaround, about 60 days. So that was going to be perfect, but I don't know. If the roly-polies keep eating the seedlings, it's going to keep pushing us off. And I really would like to make sure that we do get our Brussels sprouts in here when they're ready to come out here. I keep thinking that our shallots are going to be ready to harvest soon, but so far they are not. This is something interesting that I noticed though. See what's happening here? I had popped off a lot of the flowers that came on the plant. See this here? This is an onion flower. I decided to leave this one and I'm gonna collect the seed. I've got another one over here that's blooming. These are heirloom shallots, so I figured that would be cool. But when you pop off the flowers, you're left with this little hollow stem, and it looks like some kind of like mason bee or wasp or something has taken advantage of this hollow tube for their babies, and they've backfilled it with some kind of dry grass, as they do. So that was pretty interesting. Now over here where I took out the bees, I put in some melons, and it looks like the roly-polies have stayed away from here, but I think that's because when I put in these beets, I put down some Sluggo Plus. So the roly-polies have already been taken out of this bed. Sluggo Plus is a spinosad, which is an organic insecticide, and these do not have any kind of damage from roly-polies. I put 3 seeds in each little planting hole, and it looks like all of them germinated. These are our armpit melons. I have some armpit melons growing in the perennial garden, and we will make sure to look at those. They don't look super great, they look kind of sickly, so I wanted like a secondary spot to try to grow those. An armpit melon is something that we sort of accidentally developed here. It's a cross between a Kajari melon and a Charente melon. It looks like a Kajari on the outside, just a little bit more muted tone, and instead of being green or like a yellow-green on the inside, it is orange, and it has a very musky scent, but also very fruity, and that flavor comes through exactly like that as well. Very delicious, and it's something that I've been trying to stabilize. I had a little bit of a hiccup with my F2 seed not being exactly like my F1 seed. I don't really know what I'm doing as far as trying to stabilize seed, but in any case, I'm trying again with some of the original seed, so hopefully we get lots of armpits and I can save seed again. We are growing other melons on the homestead, as you saw in the kids' garden, but hopefully it's far enough away where the bees won't do a lot of cross-pollination. This here is a lima bean. I grew lima beans in this bed last year, and I had picked and picked and picked lima beans out of this bed while I was trying to get the beets to establish, but I've kind of given up on that, so I think I'll let that lima bean do its thing. These beets though, I don't know if you saw, they are rooting just like the carrots. Look at how awesome. So it won't be long and we'll start harvesting beets out of this bed. Look, there's another lima bean. That's funny. I have not had very much success growing beets until now, and it might be a variety thing, I'm not even sure. You know, today is Sunday that I am filming this. Sunday is watering day, and even though we are scheduled to get some rain later, it's not going to rain in here, so I think I'm actually going to turn on the irrigation while we finish up in here. It's just got this spigot, and the main line is right here. Turn this on, let her rip. This bed next to the beets is sort of my trap crop bed. It's not only attracting the cabbage loopers, but this is a harlequin bug. See that there? They love kale, and it's also been a little bit of an aphid trap. The aphids are less of a problem, but see, instead of letting these guys completely, you know, use this as a nursery and proliferate, in not very long I will hit this with DE, diatomaceous earth, and that does really help with the harlequin bugs. I think it was in my last vlog I talked about spraying BT out on some of my cabbages, and someone asked if I meant DDT, and no, I don't spray stuff like that. I actually don't even think that that kind of thing is legal here in the United States to use. I might be wrong, but I don't think it's something legal, and if it was, it's not something that I would want to use on my garden. I talked about spinosad that I have used before. DE, diatomaceous earth, is also an organic insecticide, and that works by like breaking apart their exoskeleton in a way, or drying out their exoskeleton. And then BT is really used for larvae and grubs and things, and that is a bacterium that when ingested, it just stops them from being able to eat, and they die very quickly. So yeah, as far as insecticides, those are the three that you'll see me using most often. I don't like to use chemical insecticides. Looks like the cabbage loopers are actually really liking the calendula as well, and I have really slowed down on harvesting the calendula. I probably should come out here and harvest again soon, especially since the aphids aren't really a big problem on these plants anymore like they were in the beginning. They have just cranked out the blooms like I did not expect, and I have some oil infusing with the calendula flowers right now. Planning to use those for salves. Over here where these peas were taken out, I put in some mashed potato squash. This here is a tomato, but this is the squash. I'm gonna let these two sit here for another week or so, just in case the roly-polies or birds happen to come along and take one out. I'll have one there. But I did have great germination, 2 for 2, on all of the plants that I put in here, and these guys should be harvested before the Brussels sprouts go in here. Basically everything that I'm going to be able to harvest is out of this bed. I think I just have really one cabbage that looks halfway decent. I noticed that this cabbage had quite a bit of mold on it. Maybe I can peel back the layers and get to a good part of the cabbage, but I'm not even sure. That one might end up being chicken food. I do still have this little one growing in here, so I'm just leaving it for now because I don't really have anything to put here, and it could get a little bit bigger. There's another couple, well, few cabbages over on this side too. You can see the cabbage loopers really had some time, but this is where I sprayed a little bit of BT, and you can see the new growth doesn't have any damage, which is really nice. As these cabbages grow, the BT that's on them, I mean, it's not going to be on the new leaves. I'll have to spray that to make sure that that doesn't become affected. But yeah, we've got at least a couple little cabbages there as far as the green ones, and then the red acre cabbage is starting to head up finally as well. All right, so on to the newly established growing space. Actually, I've grown out here for a few years, but this is the first year it's essentially fully kitted out with raised beds instead of in-ground like I had planted before. Before we go out there, I will show off the lavender, which actually needs another harvest. See that? There's so much lavender growing on here. I honestly didn't expect this much lavender to grow on this plant this year. I just got these plants, there's actually 4 of them in this pot. I got them as starts last year, and they grew really well, and this year we've got some flowers, and I'm wondering if I kept the plant tag. Someone was asking me if this was a culinary variety or not, and I said, you know, I actually don't know. I didn't realize that there were so many different types of lavender, and it looks like I maybe did not keep the plant tag in here. Does anyone know how to tell if it's a culinary variety or not? The hope was to use them for things like teas, but I could also put it in some oil and use them for soaps and salves and things. The potatoes are looking kind of sad. They really could use some rain. I have this whole lane on irrigation, except for I never hooked up irrigation to the potatoes. It hadn't mattered because we got a lot of rain. We are actually slotted to get a lot more rain this week, so they should do okay. Actually, it's not super unusual for the potatoes to look kind of sad and wimpy this time of year. They get pretty good greens up above ground, but as the greens die back, those tubers are developing below ground, and so I think this is just par for the course. Here are the state of my peppers. They're getting there. They had been looking kind of sad and wimpy, but as you can see, we are getting some blooms. I think from here on, yes, are the Ajvarski. So these are Ajvarski peppers. Back here are pimento peppers. And they had a little bit of a slow start, but they're plugging along. As you can see, my patty pan squash died. The patty pan had looked so gorgeous until it suddenly didn't. And in my experience, this is usually because of squash vine borer, although I see no signs of squash vine borer on these plants at all. This is actually my first year growing this variety. I think this is maybe the first year this variety has been available. It is the Green Lightning Patty Pan. You can kind of see the little baby fruit right there and what it looked like. But I see no signs of squash vine borer on the stem itself anywhere. What I do see are cucumber beetles. We have a lot of cucumber beetles out on the lane, and this, honestly, on the stem, it does look like beetle damage. Beetle will chew these little patterns on leaves and stalks and things, and they can pass on disease. And so that is my guess as to what happened to these plants. They couldn't handle kind of a normal amount of pest pressure, which is a little bit sad. This is a hybrid variety that I bought because it's resistant to powdery mildew, but it seems to be very wimpy when it comes to insects, which I think I'd rather deal with powdery mildew, honestly, because it seems like it just can't hang otherwise. So I think I'm just gonna take these out. I left them in here so I could show them to you. But our spaghetti squash is very eager to grow, and I think I'm just gonna let that grow as far as it wants to out here, and then that will allow our peppers to get as much light as they need to. I have been coming out here periodically with my husband and picking off the squash bugs. These little dudes, they look like little stink bugs. They basically are. I don't know where my little, gross, I hate them. I don't know where my soapy water went, but it's out here somewhere. I've got a little jar of soapy water that I've been plunking them down into. Growing the squash up like this really helps with hand picking off bugs and things and the bug eggs, and it also allows for our local bird population to help with that as well. Now, it doesn't seem like things like squash bugs and stink bugs are really their favorites. I don't really blame them. But as far as the cucumber beetles and things, this has been really easy for not just the birds but myself to get in there and get the bugs. As you can see, we have tons and tons of spaghetti squash growing out here. The spaghetti squash variety that I grow, I originally bought the seed from Baker Creek, and it does grow incredibly fast. So even though we are starting to see a little bit of bug pressure and bug damage on this plant as well, historically this variety has done very well for me. See this big one? Oh, they're doing great. It won't be very long before that gets full size, and then by the time it gets full size, it's like 2, maybe 3 weeks before it's hardened the rind outside and it's ready to harvest. This is a very early variety. Next to that, we have our Tromboncino bed, and we might actually travel to the other side of the trellis so you can see some of these without the trellis in the way, but they're starting to get real big. This is basically like a butternut squash type variety, except for it'll get like 3 feet long. They're absolutely delicious, and you can eat them young like this. Actually, as far as summer squash goes, young Tromboncino is really my favorite summer squash. It has a very nice buttery texture, and where a lot of summer squash like zucchini and even the patty pans, they can be kind of watery when you cook them up or even when you just freeze them. Tromboncino is not like that. It has a really nice texture even when frozen and cooked. These little boys are making their presence known. You're okay. So yes, plenty of Tromboncino on their way. This one hasn't even flowered yet. And look how big that is. It's incredible. Next up is the Autumn Frost hybrid squash. It looks like some of the bigger fruits are on the other side of the trellis here too, but these will get about 3 to 4 pounds, and they're like a tan pumpkin when they mature. This is my first time growing this variety too. See that one? They're coming right along. I've been trying to convince them to grow a little bit further up the trellis. This is more of a like shorter vining variety than those ones over there, so they're not growing as far up the trellis, although it has made it all the way up. This is the state of my gherkins. So this is what mommy's cucumbers look like. Not very great, but again, the cucumber beetle has been the insect of choice out here, and they have done their thing, eaten up the cucumbers. I think I'm actually gonna leave this be, and I'll try cucumbers again in fall time. Growing cucumbers in the heat isn't impossible, but they don't always have the best flavor in the heat. They can be pretty bitter, so I think I'm just gonna leave them be, and I'll plant them again in fall and hopefully get cucumbers. I didn't get cucumbers last year either. The Kentucky Wonder pole beans have reached the top of the trellis. This is probably 7 feet up there. And we are at the top. Now I have noticed that my leaves look like they have a little bit of disease. Not super uncommon when you have things like cucumber beetles running amok. They like to bring disease about, but it doesn't really seem to be affecting the plants too badly. They're putting on a ton of flowers, which is what we want, because these flowers end up being pollinated and turning into beans. They're really little right now, but it'll be about a week probably, and we'll start to harvest. See them there? And we should be able to harvest and harvest and harvest as long as the plants stay healthy throughout the season. This is a variety that likes to keep producing all season long. Oh, I'm actually seeing some longer ones down here, so it's not even gonna be a week. Oh, that's exciting. I have an idea. Let's see what Farrell thinks. Farrell is my garden goat, and he did not like the snap peas. I was very surprised. But last year, Farrell loved the beans. Farrell, look, buddy. Do you want the first taste? It's a bean. He says, oh boy, mama. Yeah. That's what he wanted. Not those stinky sugar snap peas. I didn't even taste them yet, but Farrell approves, so that's good. I have grown Kentucky Wonder pole beans in the past. Delicious, a little bit squeaky, but lovely. The very last set of beds is all slicing tomatoes. At least that's what I planted. It looks like the Oxheart tomatoes are in fact Oxheart tomatoes. You can see how they get their name. Looks like a heart. Beautiful. I had worried a little bit if my pruning was going to expose some of these lower fruits too much and they might get sunburned. So far they actually look okay, but I was able to stick in some Kalima bush beans down here, and there's no roly-polies out here on the lane. I'm not really sure why, because some of the soil is a little bit barky and this does attract roly-polies, but these plants are big enough to where even if roly-polies do make their way out here, they're not going to harm anything. And so we should be able to get some more harvest of beans in the same area that we are growing our tomatoes. So it's a nice little relationship there. Now again, about me planting slicers and saying that's what should be out here, that's not what this actually is. These are not slicer tomatoes, but this sometimes is what happens when you save your own seed. If you are not careful about isolating your plants, the bees do what bees do, and different pollens can make different tomatoes. I'm actually pretty excited to see what these are like. This looks a little bit closer as to what I was intending. Beautiful. It's either a Belgian Giant or a Dr. Witchy's, I'm not really sure. Besides the Ox Hearts, those are the two different heirloom varieties that I planted. I just lost track of my starts and I don't really know what I put where. I just know that I do have both varieties. Gorgeous tomato here too. That looks right. Oh, I'm so excited, you guys. Look at how much fluting is on this one. So far, knock on wood, no signs of the tomato hornworms, but they will come. Probably now that I said their name, they will come running. Look at how pretty that tomato is. I mean, it's obviously really little, but these are gonna mature and be beautiful tomatoes. Yeah, I don't actually see signs of sunburn out here. Maybe a little bit. That might be what that white spot is there. But besides that, they look pretty good. And that is just the start. There's so many little baby tomatoes coming on, many more flowers. All of these are indeterminates. So as long as the plants stay healthy, they should produce throughout the season. A lot of people talk about how there's no signs of disease on my plants. It does not take very long before there are signs of disease on my plants, but what I will do is come out and remove any of the plants that do have disease on them, because all these leaves are doing is bogging the plant down. It's causing more congestion. The plant isn't going to heal those leaves, and so removing them just allows the plant to put its resources elsewhere where it's actually going to be beneficial, like the green leaves and the fruits. You can see this big tromboncino from this side. This is going to get even bigger. It might even be very close to touching the soil down there when all is said and done. Look at that one. So exciting. Look at how big this one is. The spaghetti squash. I feel like there were not even any fruit 2 weeks ago, and look at how big they are. All right, so we're at the perennial garden. If you are stressed out or triggered by weeds and messy spaces, this is where you should click off. I get comments about how I need to be better about weeding my garden, tending my garden, whatever. Truth is, I have a lot going on. I know a lot of people have a lot going on. A lot of gardens look the way that my garden does right now. Sometimes it takes a few extra months for them to look as crazy and chaotic as this particular space does. But the fact is, this is real life. This is what's really happening in this space, and I'm gonna show it to you. Starting with the blackberries, they have all flowered. I guess most of them. There's a few flowers down here, but for the most part, the flowers have gone by, and we're starting to see a little tiny bit of blushing on the blackberries. This is triple crown thornless blackberries. Someone asked me how we harvest our blackberries, and I just go in there and do my thing and come back out and have a basket of lovely blackberries. I grew up in Maine, and my dad had a huge blackberry patch next to his house. It was massive. It was at least 20 times the size of this, if not more. And those were not thornless, but we still crawled through them and picked the blackberries, and the scratches were worth it. Same thing kind of going on over here. Our glorious elderberry plant is essentially gone by. We do have some love. Look at how huge that is. It's like dinner plate sized. This bloom. I'll have to back up the camera so that you can see it. We've got this happening over here, but for the most part, the flowers are all gone by. And you know, it kind of looks like the local bird population is going after even the green berries, because there's not very many over here. Usually they leave these alone, especially if they haven't ripened yet, but dang, there's not very much on that, is there? They've got some here, but wow. We'll have to see what our elderberry harvest is like. It might not be that great of a year for it. I've got more than just this plant, but this is, you know, in the past, this has been my most productive plant. We're gonna have to see, because yeah, there's basically nothing there. Here are the other armpit melons. We got this weeded for the most part. I need to come in and get a few grass stragglers out of here, but we've got these tomato cages up, and this is where the melons are gonna grow. They're a little bit smaller than they should be right now, but in their defense, I left this pretty weedy for a while, so they were kind of choked out, but they'll recover. We have a tomato jungle over here. These are the yellow currant tomatoes that volunteer on our property. So far, I haven't noticed any that are ready to harvest, but usually this is the first tomato that I get to eat every year. I had a birdhouse gourd volunteer in this decrepit falling down bed, and I decided to let it go. I've been guiding the tendrils, here's one, this way, towards the trellis so that it can grow up and over right there. This tendril is making it, that one's made it, this one has definitely made it. So hopefully by next week we'll really be able to see a lot of growth and attachment of the birdhouse gourd up there. That's going to be gorgeous. The volunteer sunflowers, super tall, 9 feet-ish on that big one. Passion vine, doing great. Extra bushy this year. This will grow up well too. Right here is where I harvested a lot of garlic amid the weeds. Now there's still quite a few weeds, but I do still have some elephant garlic that has to come out pretty soon. Yep. I'd say that looks pretty good despite the weeds, don't you? It's amazing what can grow even when you have a less than ideal gardening experience. I'm not saying everything can handle this kind of abuse, but some stuff can. And honestly, sometimes it's worth growing the things that can tolerate you. I don't usually have a lot of patience or want to baby things along. I sort of need my plants to be able to hold their own, which is one of the reasons I really like allowing volunteers to just come up and do their thing. Because in general, a volunteer plant is a plant that has persevered through a lot in order to germinate and get going and thrive. Volunteer plants will usually be pretty well adapted to your area and your microclimate, and so I like to let them grow and do their thing, because usually those plants are pretty hands-off and productive. So yeah, there's more elephant garlic to collect here. I will do that on another day very soon. They have definitely died back enough to show me that they are ready to come out. I actually took out the pumpkins that I put in here again. I had a second planting of pumpkins that came up looking like it had disease. So what I did, and I actually don't see anything germinating here, is I put in, oh, there's the seed. There's nothing in the seed. No, I need to replant this. I'll do that before the rain. But I went back to my original seed packet, which I got from So True Seed. These are Dutch fork pie pumpkins, and I planted that original seed. The seed that I had been putting here was from seed that I saved. And again, I like to plant seeds that I have saved because those plants are better adapted for my personal microclimate here. But sometimes disease can come in on seed, and I think that that's what happened. This pumpkin germinated though, and that is from the original seed company. So we'll see how that does. So let's chat a little bit about this weedy area. There's actually a couple beds under here that I will eventually reclaim. But one of the reasons that I decided to leave this is I was noticing all of the medicinal things that were actually growing out here. This is not chamomile, even though it looks like it. This is fleabane, very much medicinal. This is one of the more exciting things to me that I saw growing out here. This is wild lettuce. There's actually another wild lettuce plant right here. I've harvested a lot of the wild lettuce and dried it. And then of course there's a bunch of dandelions, which these are edible as well. I decided to leave them, and they will probably create their own weeds later on, but these are the kinds of weeds that I will allow because they are beneficial. I didn't need this space at this point this year. But I do have a perennial thing that I did start seeds for that I will be putting out here once I reclaim this. But it's going to be probably fall time before that goes in. I did do some weeding back here in the asparagus bed. I know this will make plenty of people very happy. It did not take me very long to weed this out. The main culprit of our weeds was the mulch that I was using, which is spent hay and rabbit manure. So a lot of the weeds that were growing were very loosely rooted. But the Callaway Golden Chamomile is blooming underneath the grapes. These are Carlos Muscadine grapes, and these have a ton of foliage like they didn't have last year. You can't even see where the grapes are. They're under here. See them there? There's actually some more fresh flowers. We're gonna be getting a ton of grapes this year, you guys. I know this is crazy, but it's also beautiful. Here we have our original asparagus bed. You can see the elderflower right there peeking out, and then the grapes. I think it's gorgeous. Yep, we got a bunch of grape flowers and grape clusters. Believe it or not, I did prune these grapes this year. This is just how they responded, by growing a lot more, which I think is normal. Oh look, one of my volunteer zinnias is a candy cane. I love this type. Isn't that gorgeous? Oh, this is why I like to leave volunteers. Beautiful. I actually didn't look at this other volunteer zinnia that bloomed. I think, yeah, this is another candy cane type. This one isn't fully bloomed yet, but this is like a queen lime mixed with a candy cane. That's gonna be pretty. There's a lot of them here. Let's peek at this herb bed because we do have some more flowers. Tons of echinacea. Look at the blooms on this echinacea. This one is the pink variety, and this one is a white powwow wild berry coneflower. And then this one is the powwow white. Gorgeous. And I'm very happy with how many buds we see on here. Over here, this is another one of the pink ones. I just recently came through and took off a lot of the cinnamon basil. A lot of it had kind of started to bud and flower. So I went ahead and chopped these way back and filled the freeze dryer. So we've got that saved for later. Salvia is looking beautiful. That's actually grown quite a bit since I put it in. This here is another volunteer zinnia. I'm pretty sure that this is a Peruviana zinnia. It looks like it has a little bit smaller leaf, and the Peruviana has a little bit of a smaller flower too. This should flower soon. We've got little buds in there. Actually, in this green stalk, which I have let go, this can be recovered and will be recovered at some point. But see, this is a Peruviana zinnia. Aren't they cute? They're little. And I think that's what volunteered over there. These grapes are really the star of the perennial garden this year. These are my Sunbelt Concord grapes. And I like chuckle every time I come over. Oh no! I chuckle every time I come over here. Oh my gosh, is that what flew at me? This giant stink bug looking thing. Looking at how loaded down this grape plant is. So many grapes. These will ripen to purple and they taste just like Welch's grape juice. So prolific and productive. And I had pruned these too. And somehow, I didn't know this would happen, but some of the fruit is coming on the first year vine growth. Isn't that interesting? You can see this old wood here. I had pruned to here, and then this green is new growth, and we have quite a lot of grapes on the new growth. Am I crazy? Is that how that actually works? For some reason, I thought the grapes were going to grow on last year's growth, but they're growing on the new growth, which is budding out of last year's growth. So maybe that's how it works. I'm not really sure. This is our 3rd year with grapes, and I feel like I'm just now starting to figure out how they grow. Anywho, I left those carrots in the greenhouse, so I'm gonna run over there and get those. I hope things are growing well wherever you are. I'll see you guys again soon.